Hello! Welcome to LVLS Whenever episode 126, and we're wrapping up the Switch retrospective with just kind of a general discussion about the system, some of its high points and low points, as well as some of the things I'm a little hopeful that Nintendo learned for the Switch 2. And there's no pickups this time, we're just going to jump right into the retrospective. Nintendo Switch, my favorite console of all time. I have over 200 games on this thing, and it is truly an incredible system. It is not without faults, and we'll talk about those briefly. But I just kind of want to use Nintendo's YouTube channel because it kind of organizes things pretty well in terms of chronological order, to talk about the Switch, and then to talk a bit about what I hope the Switch 2 does. That course corrects some of the faults of the original Switch, and also expands upon what the Switch does. So, if we look at the first year of the Nintendo Switch, which this Switch presentation playlist does a pretty good job of capturing Nintendo's initial launch year. It launched with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which was a cross-release with the Wii U, but was right there at launch. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was pretty close to launch, and then ARMS was pretty close to launch, which for whatever reason, ARMS apparently was not significant enough to include in this at all. Splatoon 2 followed shortly thereafter. We had Pokken Tournament DX, Fire Emblem Warriors, and then we got Super Mario Odyssey and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And if you just look at what Nintendo themselves did, and there's probably a couple games that I'm not immediately remembering, we also had Ubisoft release Mario & Rabbids, but I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to. Labo was pretty early. Amiibo was still a big deal. Kirby Star Allies was early 2018. A very solid first year for Nintendo. And then we get Smash in 2018, which really, after the launch year, was the game for 2018. There wasn't too much else to get excited about. I mean, there was Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, which truly was definitive. Mario Tennis Aces, which sports games in general for Nintendo and Mario did not go well this generation. Camelot didn't get the money and time that they needed to put into their games, so they were just kind of running off of fumes in a lot of ways, in my opinion. But I've talked about that enough in this series that I won't get into it. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe came in and filled some gaps. Our first original Pokemon title, Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, remakes of the original Blue and Red. Or Red and Green if you were using Japan, came out in our, honestly, probably the best Pokemon games on the system still, which is wild to think about. The first of the Mario Party games came out, which is also the most flawed, probably. And then we got Yoshi's Crafted World in early 2019. We got Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, Luigi's Mansion 3, Super Mario Maker 2, Daemon X Machina, Astral Chain, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, the surprise Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. 2019 was cooking a bit, though. I mean, 3 Houses for me is my personal favorite of all of Nintendo's output. But we got an Animal Crossing New Horizons announcement that came out in March 2020, which I'll get to momentarily. The Link's Awakening remake was pretty good. Smash DLC kept things exciting. Ring Fit Adventure was a huge success. And then once we roll into 2020, we get Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, Animal Crossing, New Horizons, which basically carried us through the pandemic. Clubhouse Games was revived with a new game. A new Paper Mario was released that wasn't universally hated. We had Pokemon 3 Deluxe come out. A new Hyrule Warriors game, Age of Calamity. I'm just contemplating if I'm missing anything. And then we started getting towards 2021. Super Mario 3D World came out with Bowser's Fury attached. We had new Pokemon Snap show up. Mario Golf Super Rush, again, had problems. Miitopia was re-released. Skyward Sword HD was released. Splatoon 3 and Metroid Dread were the big games of 2021. WarioWare Get It Together brought WarioWare to the system. Mario Party Superstars was a step in the right direction. The Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl began the downward decline of Pokemon games on the Switch. Big Brain Academy came out and nobody really cared. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I'm looking forward to playing that finally. I finally picked it up. And then Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So I would say that 2021, which I think we're still in that year, 2021, 22, yeah, in that range, was really solid. 2022 was probably the second best year for the Switch. Nintendo Switch Sports came out, trying to capture the enthusiasm of the Wii. Didn't quite get there. Pokemon Legends Arceus came out, and some people really like it, some people really don't. Lego started working with Nintendo, and we got the Super Mario sets going, and now there's all kinds of different ones. Late 2022 brought Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet, probably the most controversial Pokemon games on the system. Early 2023 brought Fire Emblem Engage, probably the most controversial Fire Emblem game on the system. Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes also came out in 2021 or 22, I don't quite remember. I think it was 21. It's probably paired with Three Houses. And then we got Super Mario Bros. Wonder in 2023, Pikmin 4, the game Nintendo probably wishes they actually didn't bother to release, Mario RPG, and of course, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And then 2024 was kind of a quiet year. We got another Code Recollection, Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake, Princess Peach Showtime, Paper Mario 1000 Year Door remaster, Luminous Ocean Luminous, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Probably the biggest news, honestly, was Emio the Smiling Man Famicom Detective Club. But Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, the best Mario Party and Jamboree, and the last of the Mario RPGs to be revived, Mario and Luigi Brothership. I know I went over all of the games originally, but it kind of helps to just kind of put everything in perspective, even though there are some games that aren't immediately popping up in this list of games, like the Kirby, what did they call the Wii Kirby? Return to Dreamland HD? That wasn't even on here. And there's other games. But on the whole, I feel Nintendo did a really good job. And 2017 and 2022 were really good years for the system. And we have some excellent games that have come out. Me personally, I would put Super Mario Odyssey and Super Mario Bros. Wonder as top tier Mario platformers. I love Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I really like Tears of the Kingdom. My love for that game has declined a bit in hindsight, but I still think it's phenomenal. Metroid Dread and Metroid Prime Remastered are two of the best Metroid games, bar none. Fire Emblem 3 Houses is my favorite Nintendo game this generation. Super Mario RPG is a phenomenal remake. Another Code Recollection. I loved playing that. It was one of my favorite experiences of last year. Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3. I adore both of those games, although I do think that 3 misfired a little bit. And then there's Smash, of course. The phenomenon that is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Truly mind-boggling in content. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is the best way to play the original Xenoblade, and it is marvelous. The Warriors spin-offs are mostly good. Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition is fantastic, full of content. Fire Emblem Warriors is probably the weakest in terms of character depth, but it's still fun. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity has major engine problems, and I'm hoping that that might get remedied on the Switch too. And then Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes is probably the best Warriors game that's exclusive to the Switch. Just quickly scanning back through, might have the best Mario Party. Might have the best Mario Kart. Even though it's a port, they added double the courses. And they experimented a bit. You know, you can't say that their attempts to do something different with ARMS or Astral Chain or trying to remember all the new games. Bringing back Clubhouse games and Miitopia. And Nintendo Switch Sports. They tried to bring a little bit of that casual era from the Wii and DS, 3DS back to the Switch to some success. Pikmin had a really good run. Animal Crossing had its probably best release in New Horizons. So on the whole, if we just think about things like Pokemon misfired, Mario sports games needed more money. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD probably shouldn't have been farmed out to Forever Entertainment because it's not a good remaster in terms of how they changed things. It's kind of like Majora's Mask 3D. They changed things that they shouldn't have in the process of porting it. But on the whole, I feel like Nintendo was very successful. And they did take some risks, but they also didn't take risks in some areas that I think they needed to. Nintendo Switch Online needs to do more than what it's doing for the Switch 2. I feel like the service is too slow, and the drip feed is tiring, because we also don't know what games are coming anymore. So it's just like, oh, there's new games. Oh, wow, I've never heard of Super Ninja Brothers or Suit Hakun. Just to use the Super Nintendo update from a couple days ago as an example. It's fascinating, though, how Nintendo has been approaching Switch Online, and I hope that with Switch 2 we get more consoles and more release consistency. Towards the end of 2024, they were cooking a bit over there, and that was kind of fun. But we can't go like 18 months without a console update like they did with the Genesis. That's absolutely ridiculous that we went that long without a Genesis update. It should be weekly, in my opinion. There should just be, even if it's just one game, if we released a game weekly, that would be better than going 3 weeks with nothing and then you get 3 games. Because I think you just forget. There was a couple initiatives that started up. We have Nintendo Music, which I think is kind of novel. The Nintendo Switch Online app pushed things a little bit more online. Still needs work. It still needs better connectivity. And I think that the program as a whole, outside of the console apps, needs a refresh, because we haven't got any new perks since F-Zero 99. And we've lost perks like Super Mario 35 and Pac-Man 99. And there's one or two others that I can't immediately remember. Speaking of Super Mario 35, I've talked about this briefly earlier in one of the earlier videos, but I do want to just add one more time that Nintendo thought it was a great idea to release games on a limited time frame for like a few months. They did this with Super Mario 35, they did this with Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and they did this with Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the Blade of Light's localization. And all of them were bad ideas. And they only reverse course on one game they plan to do that with, and that's the jump rope game, which is still up, but is very silly. In terms of like tournaments and stuff, Nintendo has gotten very tight about that. They don't really like sharing tournaments anymore, so they don't. And they're very litigious. They've also been increasingly litigious towards music on YouTube, which is annoying in many ways. They've been litigious about people emulating, which in some ways I don't have any issues with if they're trying to profit off of it, but if it's just somebody sharing games, they take them down and take them to court and all this stuff. It's not pleasant. That's kind of a bad look. Amiibo have really slowed down over the Switch. When the Switch started, we were getting Amiibo for many games. And as we get into 2025, last year we only got Splatoon Amiibo for Splatoon's DLC and the single player content with the idols and re-releases. I don't think there was any other new Amiibo that came out. We didn't get Princess Peach Showtime Amiibo. We didn't get Paper Mario Amiibo. We didn't get Echoes of Wisdom Amiibo. And those are kind of like the bigger releases where Amiibo might be expected. We got Tears of the Kingdom Amiibo, but in contrast to Breath of the Wild, we got 3 for Tears and like 8 to 10 for Breath of the Wild. So it's just not as important as it used to be for Nintendo. And I would not be surprised if they just backed off beginning with the Switch 2, and Amiibo just doesn't really exist anymore in terms of new content, which is a shame because I think that they are high quality toys for the price. I love them. I have so many of them, as you've seen in videos. But I can see where they might just not feel that it's worth the cost to continue pushing them out like they used to. So, the other big thing is hardware, and I think Joy-Con construction was not good when they launched the Switch, and Joy-Con drift was probably the closest thing to a catastrophe that Nintendo had on the system. It didn't derail it like it could have if it had gotten worse, but it was not a good thing, especially because Nintendo has, for the most part, a solid reputation for the quality of their hardware and controllers. Not so much with Joy-Cons. I did notice in the Switch 2 trailer they really emphasized those sticks. So I suspect that they will be working to make sure that doesn't happen again. The Switch itself, I don't have any major issues with its form factor or how it docks or anything like that. Honestly, the handheld part, I don't do much anymore because my Joy-Cons have drift. So it does remove that element for me, and it'll be nice to have a Switch 2 which I can actually take to another room in the house and not just have it docked. As long as the performance doesn't suffer horribly in that process. But like, I honestly forgot that I could use the Switch portably. I usually don't anymore because it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But as we wrap up the Switch, there's a rumored direct coming next month for the last reveal of Switch exclusive games. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is on the horizon in March. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Pokemon Legends ZA are the only other Nintendo releases outside of that sphere. So having a little Nintendo Direct to show off a couple more releases while we wait for the launch of the Switch 2 is probably a good idea. Don't have any idea what Nintendo could be working on. There's many rumors. I will not get into those now. We'll see when we actually have a February Direct announcement. I might do a speculation video. But what do I want for the Switch 2? What do I want for the Switch 2? Well, I'm going to jump into one of these videos real fast. And one thing that I do want for the Switch 2, when we actually get to the menu on this, there we go. I would like a theme. I would like a theme. That's not this. I would like something that's a little bit more Nintendo. The Wii and the Wii U and the 3DS all had themes that had characters and energy and life to it. The Switch is very sterile. And I know that was somewhat intentional. And I do think that they could be doing so much more with the Switch in terms of the home layout, but they just didn't make that a priority. I also would like the store. I would like the eShop to not run like garbage. It is sluggish trying to look at things in the Coming Soon tab or in the Recent Releases tab anymore. It would also be great to have some additional filtering, because compared to 2017, where this was your menu, there is just a glut of asset flips and just garbage, trash, games trying to rip off other games and confuse buyers, games that are pandering or over-sexualized in their titles or thumbnails. It would be great to be able to screen that stuff a bit so you're just able to navigate this a little bit easier. I don't want to get rid of visual novels. Let me be clear. There is someone who has made an effort to clean up the eShop, but apparently don't consider visual novels a genre. That's wrong. That's not something you should auto-filter. Anyway. So that way it's like I don't have to see Ubisoft games because I don't want to support the company, and it would just be great if I didn't have to see any of their games show up on the eShop. Or I don't want to see games that have the word hentai in the title, because that is just something I don't want to see in my Nintendo eShop experience. That would be great if they could do that. I think that better integration between the website version of the eShop and the Switch version of the eShop, or Switch 2 in this case, could be better. I do like how PlayStation has theirs set up, that I could tell it to download something. I don't think the Switch has that feature. I could be wrong, but it's not as smooth and streamlined as the PlayStation Store. That I could just sync accounts real easily and then buy something on that storefront and it goes to the PlayStation. It's really nice. It would be cool too to have more from the online app, because honestly there's not a lot to it. It's really just like Splatoon. To be completely frank. And it's kind of annoying in the grand scheme of things. How little that there is that you can do with Nintendo Switch Online's app. It's supposed to be like your microphone, but it's not great. I mean, there's a little bit of Animal Crossing, a little bit of Smash, but it's like I own the majority of Nintendo's releases, and I have 4 game-specific services: Splatoon 2 and 3, Animal Crossing, which I no longer own, and Smash. And I would like to hope that in the future we better integrate this with other things, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have it on my phone if that's all it does. And if I'm not playing Splatoon at the moment, it doesn't really do anything for me. I think that moving into probably the last thing I want to touch on is that backwards compatibility. It would be great to know what most means. I suspect, as most people have been, that it refers to the original Joy-Con's IR camera not being in the same position, or possibly not being in the Joy-Cons. We're not 100% sure. But Labo and Ring Fit Adventure and a couple other titles that heavily rely on the IR camera, like there's a couple WarioWare games that do. I think there's a couple Super Mario Party. I don't know about Jamboree, but the original or Superstars I think has some. That will get lost. Those games will not be playable. 1-2 Switch and everybody 1-2 Switch as well will not be playable. But the majority that don't bother with that camera, which is most, probably won't have a problem, and it'll work just fine. It would be amazing if the hardware was able to make games run better, or smooth out some of the rough textures, or iron out engine problems, like in Pokemon Sword and Shield / Scarlet Violet, or Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, or Tears of the Kingdom, or Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity for that matter. But it would be cool if that was something that it could do, and I would appreciate that. It would make making the backwards compatibility even a bigger deal. And my hope is that if there are any enhancements, they don't charge for it. Because capitalism. I don't want to see Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild HD. I don't need that. I criticize Sony for re-releasing The Last of Us like 16 times in the last 5 years. I don't really need to see games that just came out be getting remastered. I just think it's silly, because I think PlayStation 4 games look good. They don't need to suddenly have even more skin pores. I guess the other thing that I would like to see for the Switch 2 is that continuing drive and innovation from Nintendo. One could argue that there are some releases that are a little lacking in that, and I want to see Nintendo continue to cover many different properties. I don't want them to just do Mario all the time, for example. I want to see them embrace some of their quieter franchises. Seeing another Code come back was wonderful. Seeing Advance Wars come back was wonderful. Seeing Famicom Detective Club roar back with a new game on top of remakes was wonderful. Seeing a balance between getting games like Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, alongside Nintendo Switch Sports and Animal Crossing New Horizons. And then having games like Astral Chain and Bayonetta 3 and Daemon X Machina. Just not limiting yourself to one market, really, is what I want from Nintendo. I don't want things to get gimmicky. I don't want things to get heavily reliant on one franchise to carry the load. I want to see what they did this this gen, but more. We have so many franchises that Nintendo could resurrect, either through remakes, remasters, ports. Kid Icarus, F-Zero, could get more than just a 99 game. Golden Sun would make a lot of RPG fans from the GBA happy. See that come back. I don't know, Mach Rider. They could do something neat with a bike that transforms into a rider, I think. I want to see more crossover, honestly. I want to see Smash Brothers, but in other things. My secret hope is that Mario Kart is Smash Kart, and that Mario Party could become Smash Party, and not just limit itself to the Mario universe, but expand and start bringing in stuff like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe started teasing, with Zelda and Animal Crossing and Splatoon crossovers, and then F-Zero and Excite Bike tracks. There's so much that could be done. Wave Race. If we could have a wave race with modern technology that really made the ocean pop and do things like the original Wave Race 64 did, I would love that. I would love a 1080 where it really, like, Avalanche tried to come up with something new. The Avalanche system wasn't quite it, but just imagine that you could have snow build over time, and it changes the course every time you run it. That would be pretty sick. And I just kind of replayed 1080 last month. And I really like that game, but I really would like to see some more thought into some of these franchises that we haven't seen in a while that I think would be great to bring back. That's really what I want. So I want Nintendo to do well, ultimately, with the Switch 2. Poof. Editing. I want to see hints of what we're seeing in Mario Kart 9, for lack of a better word for it, but taken to so many things. I want to see the Switch 2 last as long as the Switch and replicate the success of the Switch. It's doing what I think it needs to do carefully in order to pull that off. And I'm really hopeful that the Switch 2 becomes as good as the Switch 1 and becomes my favorite console of all time, because that's what the Switch is. All right, well, that ends our Switch retrospective. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, friends.